Items? Do you have anything? I don't see anything here. Administrative items. Oh, my goodness. Margaret O'Brien, you bring us good news, don't you?
Not Margaret.
The Grim Reaper.
Oh, she's back again.
It's not about the fire station, is it?
Oh,
news
is it
about
about the
fire
clock,
station.
Margaret?
Huh?
Are you going to talk about the clock?
The clock is in
Oh,
the
this-
project.
okay.
You had to say that, didn't you?
I did. I just have to get things fired up good
Nobody
here.
wants to see me unless I'm talking
Those
about
are
a clock.
dramatic pictures in our
Yes.
packet.
Aren't those dramatic pictures? And I did not bring a PowerPoint because you got dramatic pictures in your packet and they didn't translate well to PowerPoint last time I did it. But we are discussing the consideration of closing the fire station until such time as construction is complete. Staff is recommending against that because we have a lot of data that is coming back saying the fire station is good for to be inhabited. So just a quick overview. The fire station is about 20 years old. It's pretty much leaked since inception. The city has gone intermittently and worked and tried to get it to stop leaking. We've patched it. You can see the patchwork done on this building. So the last step was to put a new roof on it and see if that was going to work. Before we could get to that point, Captain Blair is here. Captain Blair discovered mold in the fire station, which was very helpful. It kind of accelerated the need to deal with this building. Obviously, we jumped into high gear. We got all the mold out of the building. We had it remediated. We've had air quality testing done. Everything is coming back clean. We have RGA, who is our environmental technicians. They're on a T&M contract with the city, and they're going to go in every 3 months and test the air quality to make sure it's maintaining until we can get the construction going. We have an architect on board already. They have been working on analyzing the envelope of the building, and they're almost done with their analysis, which is obviously re-roofing the building. We're going to take every interior wall in every room that has had leaking down to its studs, so that we know there's no mold behind those, and bring them back up to finish. We're going to add insulation. Apparently, the building is not insulated, which is not great when you're on the peninsula.
Really?
We have a laundry list of.
Who designed and approved that
Charlie?
building is all I want to know.
That was like 1990. I wasn't even.
Okay.
You were born then.
I was born, but I wasn't around. I was getting out of high school and going off to do other things.
Okay.
So the environmental testing results are coming back very, very good, and you have the previous results in your packet, should you feel like reading them. And the current results have come out, and they're good. The reason we brought this to you was because for everything we're doing, there was a call to Cal OSHA, and that raised my concerns because I don't live in this building, that perhaps the firefighters might have concerns about being in the building prior to construction. So we wanted to bring this forward to consideration. Chief Johnston was nice enough to run some scenarios. Those are the maps in and I did bring the maps if we could throw them up, in your packet of what the coverage would be like. And essentially the 5.5 minute radius or response time can get us to right about here, depending on, oops, you can see my hand, right about there, depending on the traffic level. So that covers Watergate. Does not cover Hong Kong East Ocean or the tip of the peninsula, but it does cover the majority of the structures out there, should we shut it down. Let's see, what else do we have going on? Oh, and then Watergate is also in the process of retrofitting their buildings, but they're not going to be done until roughly 2015, and I can't hold off on the fire station until Watergate is retrofitted. So one of the things that we do have to acknowledge is that during construction, the best way to expedite construction is to shut the station down at that point and move everybody off the peninsula and into Fire 2, or 35 now, the Hollis Street Station, during construction. We anticipate construction to be 6 to 8 months.
And starting when? Mark?
We're finishing up the discovery phase. We probably won't have documents. We're looking at winter.
So December,
rainy
January?
season.
I never said I was bright.
Yeah.
Yes, in the rainy season. So, it's just going to have, maybe we'll start with the interior and then they'll figure it out.
Okay.
We had a very dry winter, so keep your fingers crossed. No monsoons, no El Niños. We'll be okay.
Karen, when are you going to do the improvement to the Hollis Street
I
station?
do look like Karen.
Sorry,
We were
Margaret,
interchangeable
Margaret.
at one time.
Margaret.
When am I going to do the improvements to the Hall Street Station?
for the firefighters to
For the
move in there.
firefighters to come in. I need to get a couple other things off my plate first, but they will be done before they go in. So I will hope to start those up in a couple of months.
So the hope is really to get the firefighters out before the rainy seasons then
Yes.
starts in December.
Yes.
I seem to recall, though, that Fire Station 35 had some significant work to be done.
It's in there.
No, we walked it, Chief Johnston, myself, and Pete, whose last name I can't pronounce, who's the facilities, Pagodas, thank you. He's the facilities guy with Alameda County Fire. We walked it and we made a laundry list with the people who were in the station at the time of stuff that needs to be done to make it habitable. Okay. The only scary part of the Hollis Fire Station is behind the building that there's this old training, is it a training tower with a basement? It was the old corp yard. So that's it's not someplace they live.
So it was just when we were considering having it as the EOC, that's when there was the seismic upgrades and other...
Seismic upgrades and other things. And it would be really nice to replace that station at some point because it is surrounded by that masonry building right next to it on the property line. And we had concerns in an earthquake that one might come down, even though it's retrofitted.
But it's suitable, you're saying, for now?
It's
with
suitable
some
for
minor-
now. But I have about a couple $100,000 worth of work that I need to do, just so that it's compatible for the amount of traffic that it's going to get as far as living quarters go. But yeah, it's a laundry list of things like replacing stoves and taking care of some safety issues with carpetings and other items.
And do you have a likely cost for both of the fire stations?
For for the Peninsula Fire Station, my guesstimate, the costs are still rolling in, was 1.4. Hopefully it'll be a lot lower. And for the Hollis Fire Station, we were looking at about $100,000 to $200,000 worth of stuff. But the Hollis Fire Station, please consider that's stuff that's going to have to be done anyways. It's all maintenance, routine maintenance stuff that needs to be addressed. So,
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, Kurt, I have a question for the chief. Kevin, what disturbs me is, your 5.5, you'll be able to get to Watergate if they're over on Hollis. But the key phrase in that was depending on traffic. And we got about, 2,500 people living in the Watergate condominiums. At the present time, it does not have a sprinkler system. And winds come up in the afternoon at the same time. Traffic gets very high. The Watergate condos are a real big fire risk, and I'm very concerned that we move all the firefighters and the equipment out of there, and we're depending on a 5.5 response time, depending on traffic, and that's a big hole. Could you comment on that?
That's true.
Chief?
It is. If that fire station and when that fire station closes to do this work, depending on where the firefighters are relocated, the most likely scenario at this point, with what we're looking at, is Station 35. It does increase the response times there, and those are the models that we ran there. We're trying to demonstrate under a worst case scenario, and I think we dropped the speeds all over town to 15 miles per hour. So really, it's a bad day in Emeryville when you're driving that slow to show where you can get. It's a bad case when it's only 15 miles per hour in Emeryville everywhere. Well, it is. It's exactly. Here, I'll come up. Hold on a second.
Look, I brought you maps. That's the 15 miles everywhere.
That's the 15 miles everywhere. Okay. So I just lost my top there.
Not the first tonight.
Yeah, pop my top. Okay, so this model is 15 miles per hour on all the streets in Emeryville. So what this is trying to show is coming out of Fire Station 35, where can you get to in 5.5 minutes? And it's, as Margaret was saying, it gets you through to just at the end of the Watergate condominium complex there. Wow, this makes me sound so much better. So it definitely does. It definitely does impact. It's longer to get out to the peninsula, and that 5.5 minutes doesn't stretch out into the public-private marinas in Hong Kong restaurant there. So it definitely does impact. Just so you know, the background on the 5.5 minutes, when you did your contract, it was based on the first unit arriving within 7 minutes 90% of the time, and that came from our standards of cover document that we did when we were going through that whole process of contract. That's where that came from. So out of that 7 minutes, we take 90 seconds out for reflex time. That's the firefighters getting suited up, getting ready, getting their turnouts, the helmet, everything ready, reading the map before they get out of the fire station. That leaves you your 5.5 minute response time. So to answer your question directly, it absolutely takes longer. So that's another reason why we would argue that all things being equal, that you not shut that fire station down until the absolute last minute when
very
there's
last
construction
minute.
going on. Right.
Because once you shut it down, you're leaving that complex vulnerable to what could be a catastrophic fire if it's allowed to get beyond a certain amount of time in response time. And we all know it's a problem. But what I'm asking is, have you had any discussions with the Watergate management about pushing forward the fire suppression system?
The sprinkler install?
The sprinkler installation.
So I think we had a brief discussion about that in public safety. I know George Warren commented when we talked about that very subject there. They're already having challenges with that sprinkler install, and some of it is using the piping that's already in there, and I think they've run into a couple problems. So he's very hesitant to go ahead and push and say rush, because if we go rush through it, then all of a sudden we've got problems, and now we're having to wait for those problems to get rectified. So as far as his assessment of it, it's moving along right about where it needs to go, and we really can't push them any faster.
Well, what I'm suggesting is, given that it's a quarter of our population out there in a very questionable building, is that we should formally address the Watergate Board of Directors. Have you or your staff go over and address the Watergate Board of Directors in a public meeting, and they're taped, they're on record, that when we close the fire station, the time of response is not going to be what it is now, and that they should understand that. Does everybody agree with me on
No,
this?
I agree. Ruth has
Yeah,
a
I've said-
statement that I have come back to.
I have
an
some
idea.
comments. First of all, thank Margaret and Public Works, whoever did all the discovery, the air testing, arranging for all of that. Thank you. I don't really know the Cal OSHA regs, but with the latest air sampling, do they kind of give a seal of approval that we've dealt with stuff?
The notice of violation came in after the packet, and there is no notice of violation. So they've given us they are in agreement that the city is responding as well and as quickly as it can, and they are also in agreement that there is lots of evidence that the city has tried to shore up that building before this happened.
Okay,
So so far as we know, we're good.
okay,
We're
great.
working hard.
All right. So is there any other regulatory agency that we should be aware of in this process?
Maybe the safety guy.
None that
Okay.
I can think
So then my next comment isn't so much about fighting fires, but it's about the medical response. And my understanding, if someone arrests or codes and is unresponsive for 6 minutes, there's permanent brain damage. And now you're telling me under these circumstances that you've modeled, there's a 5.5 minute response time, which leaves 30 seconds left to try to deal with someone who's coded. So is there any way of maybe not, is there a way to respond that would improve medical outcomes, either by having gear stored in Watergate somehow, or having more nimble or faster vehicles that the county could give us, so that we're not dealing with huge rigs coming back responding to medicals.
Actually, can I rephrase that a little bit differently?
No, that's how I'm
Well,
asking my question.
Okay. Okay. Faster, anyway.
I mean, you know, is there a way to get through town faster than these big rigs?
I'm trying to think what that would be, and I think if traffic is what it can be in town, it's not necessarily the size of the rig. It's just dealing with the roads and the traffic conditions at the time.
Motorcycles split lanes. They go.
Yeah, but I don't think you want
You
your
know.
firefighters splitting lanes with.
But my point is there some other way to get to be more nimble, especially around the medical calls?
So, I mean, the only thing that's coming to mind right now is semi-automatic defibrillators in Watergate.
Can I
Right,
throw out an idea?
Yeah.
We have the police station down there. We
Yes.
pretty much know when traffic is going to be slow.
Yes.
What would be the problem with having the unit stationed down there for an hour or two in that period of time during the day where traffic is a mess? And then just have them go back, because we got the police station, they have the bathrooms there, we can maybe use a temporary area there for the firefighters. So if they need to be dispatched, they're right there and they can hop in their rigs and go right across the street.
Something we could look at.
Or Kurt, what about during the time that the fire station is closed down, that we have an additional contract with the ambulance service?
AMR.
That they go directly to Watergate before the firefighters go? What would be the possibility of that?
Well, the problem is availability of that paramedics plus ambulance, and right now they are already strapped. The way the system works is there's fewer ambulances out there than fire trucks out there with paramedics on them, and that's the way the system is designed, because there's a larger saturation of fire engines with paramedics who can get to people quickly. The paramedics, transport ambulances are few and far between comparatively when you compare that to the fire apparatus. So changing the number of ambulances on the street, or the deployment, that would probably have to go through Alameda County EMS, and
Right.
I'm not quite sure what it would take to do that. It's unlikely.
I heard a number that the ambulances are staged, it's about 700 times a shift or a day, as far as they're moved from location to location, because there's a weighted location for the ambulances, so that you always have coverage. So they're always moving it anyway. So it'd be maybe if we just waited a little bit more when traffic is heavy. Now we'd have to figure out a way to tell them that. But I like the idea of staging you guys down
What
there.
I was trying to get at was having
that's a good
a medical response, not a firefighter response.
Yeah, but they go hand in hand.
Well, but unfortunately, they can't go hand in hand because they're not on the peninsula.
Yeah, I know, but yes, Margaret.
So I'm understanding what you guys are asking for.
okay.
And I can't give you a solution tonight, but if you will give us some time to go back and
Would you?
brainstorm and get the right people, you're really focused on emergency response as far as medical goes. And that's what you want to be able to provide the Watergate people during this construction period.
And fire.
Well, and fire,
yeah.
but, fire requires big rigs, so you're looking at something nimble. Let us go back and put our heads together and figure out what our options are and come back.
Okay,
Is that,
okay.
Serious business,
yeah, no, it is serious business, but, I mean,
life and death.
How long does it take to put a line in somebody?
An IV line?
Yes.
It's setting up the IV, and depending on how good your venous access is, I don't know, folks behind me, it's been a while since I've been a paramedic, but it would take
Bone
me,
marrow.
or up to maybe 2 minutes, depending on what's going on. Yeah.
Okay.
But I just want to say also the 5.5 minute is the movement from the fire station to Watergate. It's 7 minutes
Yeah, that's
response.
right.
Total.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
And then you have to get up the elevator with luck.
What I'm amazed is how fast you can get to all kinds of places in Berkeley.
Yeah, there's wide coverage
There's more of
from
a street
35.
grid.
Well, and yeah, is it just the Powell Christie intersection and the frontage road that?
Well, it is, plus the fire station's up on Hollis there. It's
Yeah.
63rd and Hollis, so I mean, it's a straight shot right in there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Do you firefighters have anything you want to say?
Oh, I have more of them.
Yeah,
You guys
come on
come
up.
in.
Hi, my name is Michael Blair. I'm a captain at Station 34.
Thank
I'm
you for being
originally
here.
from Alameda County. And then about 4 months after the consolidation, I was assigned here to fill Captain Arn's spot. So first of all, I want to say I love working in Emeryville. What a wonderful place to provide coverage for the citizens. I also want to say that Margaret O'Brien has done a wonderful job in helping us with this project and moving this forward. And I know it's probably cost the taxpayers a few dollars to try to sort this out, but we appreciate your support. So with that said, just specifically on the topic, there's a couple of things, and this is coming from our president. I'm the Local 55 district rep for Emeryville, and he wanted me to convey to you that the position of Local 55 really is that we want to provide the best level of service to the citizens of Emeryville, and that is covering, both 35 and 34. And so when it comes to doing the construction on this project, our position is that we want to leave, if construction starts on Monday, we want to leave on Sunday night. So we want to be there up until the very last minute. And then if construction is happening on Monday, we'll move out. And then if construction finishes on Friday, 6 months down the road, we want to be back in the station on Saturday, because we do appreciate the fact that having an engine in two separate geographic locations ultimately does provide the best medical care, the best fire suppression across the board. It's going to be better service. And as far as temporarily assigning us somewhere, Station 35 is a very appropriate place for us to be assigned. The local believes that even though the department came up with the 5.5 minutes that would give us coverage, do you have that map? So when you look at the map, a lot of the traffic issues, that some of the concerns are traffic, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, our engineers everyone that works at the station is very aware of the traffic patterns in Emeryville, and so our responses are never from point A to point B. Our responses are adaptive to the situation. So if we know that there's going to be traffic on Powell Street, we're going to avoid Powell Street. So a good example would be, if it's 4 or 5 o'clock, we may not go over the Powell Street overpass. We may cut across the tracks and then come down Shell Mound, or we may go to Ashby and take the frontage road. And I think that you're going to see pretty rapid response times to the Watergate facility.
That makes sense.
And just being geographically a small city, where all the other cities that Alameda County provides service to, there's going to be high density housing where there's high risk, and sometimes it's not always ideal, the location of that, and it takes us a few extra minutes, but overall I think our response times are still really quick. And the last thing I wanted to say, just that 35 would be a very appropriate place, given that the facility is already prepared to house firefighters, and it's already a fairly big facility. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Thank you for coming, gentlemen.
I guess Betsy? We have one more public comment.
This is actually really a question. Somebody told me that when the building, the fire department, the building was put on the Peninsula 20 years ago, that part of the reason was because if there was a really large earthquake, that if the bridges on 80 were to collapse, that there wouldn't be access to the Peninsula from Hollis Street. I don't even know if that's a likelihood or not. And so if everything is off-site, and if there were a large earthquake, I remember during the Loma Prieta that there was a fire in the marina, and since Watergate is a wooden structure, that would just be sort of a concern. I also want to say I really appreciate your willingness to stay to the last minute and move right back in. I really do appreciate that. That's all.
Thank you. Margaret, do you know the history? I know it's before your time, but
It was before my time, thank God. The Emeryville Peninsula is an engineered landfill, and everything west of 80 is a high liquefaction zone. So that's one of the reasons we're wanting to construct an EOC is because if the Hayward Fault moves at a 7 or bigger, it's a very decent possibility that the 80 will come down and cut off the peninsula. It's
it's where we live.
It's where we live. I don't know how to alleviate that for 6 to 8 months. So,
There will still be a police presence, which
Yes.
has some.
true. Matter of fact, that's where all the police presence will be.
Exactly. So we just split the town.
We'll just split it.
Fire and police.
Yes. So yeah, we'll push construction, but the best way and the most expedient way to get the construction done, and the most considerate way to the firefighters who are trying to sleep in that building, is to not have them in the building when we're doing it.
Right.
So we'll see you back in October, November, a little status report.
Sure.
Good.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Margaret.
thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on